Okay guys, welcome back sa ating channel and welcome back for another lecture in the subject Personal Identification Technique. Okay, so this is already the part 3 of our lecture, no? And today, in this video, we're going to be talking about two topics only, no? Although medyo madugo-dugo to kasi we need to have, an illustration with this matter and yun nga, no? It's a challenge for me. So we're going to be talking about the fingerprint pattern groups, no? So we know that already, yung kung ano yung mga fingerprint family pattern, no? We are just going to talk about the fingerprint family pattern muna, no? Before we proceed with the general class, the specific classification of each and every pattern that we have, no? So, right there, we're going to talk about, nakita nyo naman, no? Arch, loop, and whirl patterns, no? And the second topic, we will be discussing a little bit on the ridge characteristics, okay? So, without further ado, guys, no? Let's jump right to in our discussion. So, for the fingerprint patterns, well, you know naman that there are actually 9 fingerprint classification, but those classification are actually grouped into 3 families, no, family pattern. So they are considered as the major family pattern. We have their arch, loop, and whirls, no? With regards to their characteristics, syempre we can say that these are their general characteristic, that majority of the fingerprint that we have are actually classified either in the three family pattern that we have. So if you're going to look into your finger, you could probably identify them later on once that you are familiar already with regards to the characteristic, no, specific characteristic of the classification of the patterns that we have, no. But yun nga, they have recorded the statistical approximation with regards to the the numbers of patterns that appears in every human being. Then they have this how do you call this, approximation, no? So for arches, no, we have actually two types of arch. Now we have plain arch and tented arch, no. Approximately, there are only 5% of the entire population that has this pattern. So among these three family pattern that we have, ito yung pinaka konti, no, lang ang merong ganitong fingerprint pattern. Then we also have yung loop, no. Loop pattern are actually classified into two, no, radial loop and ulnar loop, no. So 60% of the entire population has this fingerprint pattern. Now for me, I get the combination kasi of a loop and a whirl, no? So meron ibang part ng finger ko that are classified as loop, and I have also some fingerprints that are classified as whirls, no? So it's not uncommon to have a combination of this fingerprint family pattern, no? Pwedeng meron kang arch sa isang daliri mo, no? Then the rest can also be different, such as having loop or whirls, no? So later on, we are going to look into these two classification of loop, no? Pero tignan muna natin yung statistical approximation niya, which is 60% among the entire population has that. So that is somewhat like the panggitna, no? Na with regards to the number of people having that fingerprint classification. And it's not panggitna. Yun pala yung pinakamarami, no? Pinakamarami. So whirls naman, approximately 30% of the entire population has that fingerprint pattern, no? And among the three family fingerprint pattern, no, mas marami tayong subclassification for whirls, no? So we have here yung plain whirl, no? Meron din yung central pocket loop whirl, no? Double loop whirl and accidental loop whirl. Now all of these are classified as whirls, no? So 30% of the entire population has that. Okay, so with regards to the fingerprint characteristic, no, we have here some, no, I think, yes, diba I already allowed you to draw some of these type of ridge characteristics, no? But then not only them, no, hindi lang sila yung i-discuss natin, rather we are going to talk also about the so-called, what's this, no? Ito yung mga pattern of identification. Ito yung mga patterns that we should be familiar of, no? Especially when we are going to proceed already on identification and comparison. So, nandiyan guys yung recurving ridge, we need to know about that. Converging ridge, appendage, type lines, diverging, bifurcating pattern area, delta, and core. No? So these are the significant terms or patterns that we should be familiarizing ourselves with before we proceed to the deeper part of the personal identification techniques, no? Especially on fingerprint identification. So yeah guys, no? Moving on, no? I'm going to let's move into the table para nang sa ganun, we can be able to illustrate the different topics that we will be discussing, such as the definition of the patterns, the fingerprint patterns, and as well as the definition of the different fingerprint characteristic that we should be familiarizing ourselves with. So we start with the pattern of identification, recurving ridge, converging ridge, and so on before we proceed to fingerprint pattern. So stay back muna, standby kayo guys, no? Then I'll prepare my materials here so that I can be able to illustrate to you what am I talking about when we are referring to these following patterns. Okay guys, so we are here on our drawing table. So we are going to illustrate, or I'm going to illustrate to you the different patterns that we should be familiar of, no, in relation to the topic that we will be discussing. No, I like I've stated, no, this is very important kasi this will be the basis for our this is the basic knowledge that we should have before we proceed with regards to the other part of the subject matter, no, in relation to identification. So first guys, let us illustrate a recurving ridge. No? So a recurving ridge is defined as a ridge formation that curves back, no, from the direction from which it started, and it usually looks like a hairpin. So usually guys, no, a recurving ridge will appear like this, no, doon sa ating fingerprint, which is very common for loop pattern. So one that starts from here, diba? Usually it starts there, no, and then it will recurve, babalik siya doon sa kung saan siya nanggaling, which is there, no, pag ganun, bumalik siya pag ganun. So that is a recurving ridge. That's very common guys, no, for doon sa ating mga how do we call this, loop pattern, no? So we have there the definition for recurving ridge, no, it starts there and it will go back from which it had started. A converging ridge naman guys, no, is defined as a ridge formation whose close end is angular and which serve as a point of convergence. Usually it is a pointed one, no? So for converging, there are two ridge involved here, no? So dalawa yung ridge na involved dito. So one, for example, ito, no, is a ridge, then other may appear like that, no? So isa pang ridge na yan. So this, no, dito sa dahil nagsalubong yung dalawang ridge na yan, for example, this is ridge number 1 and we have here ridge number 2. They nanggaling sila sa magkaibang parte ng magkaibang area sa ating fingerprint, then they meet up somewhat here, no? So now they converge, no, nagsama sila. So we call this the recurving, no, I mean is not recurving, this is the converging, no, converging ridge. Okay, they converge, mix, join sila together, nagsama sila, no. Usually we can find this para sa mga arch pattern, no, which is the decisive characteristic, no, before we can call, or for us to call some ridge formation as how do you call this, tented arch, no. Then we also have appendage, no. For appendage naman guys, is just an addition for that usually can be seen doon sa mga recurving ridge. So for example, we are looking at a loop pattern. So halimbawa meron tayong recurving ridge na ganyan, no? Then if there are something like here, meron siyang additional ridge dito sa kanyang taas, or maliit or malaki man siya, pero kung makikita natin na ipatong ito doon sa top portion ni recurving ridge, etong portion na ito, no, we call that the appendage, no? That's the appendage. Okay? So far, no, I hope na nakukuha pa rin natin, ano? So appendage, as well as we have stated, no, can be the deciding factor, no, or characteristic before or when we will decide that a characteristic, no, or a fingerprint pattern will be labeled as either arch or loop, no? Kasi usually kung may mga ganito guys na appendage, no, nagfo-fall yung pattern natin into the so-called arch pattern, no? Especially kung may mga sumunod na dyan, maggaganyan na siya, no? So pwede nang masabi na natin that it's actually a tented arch pattern. Anyway, we will have a clear illustration with regards to this pag sama-sama na siya natin, ano? Pagpasensyahan ninyo ang ating munting illustration kasi wala talaga tayong kaalam-alam sa pagdrawing, eh. Okay. Okay, so I'll illustrate also what is a type line, no? So a type line usually is two parallel line. For example, I'm going to draw, no, that one, no? For example, this is a fingerprint pattern, no? So usually the appearance of a fingerprint pattern, let's say I'm going to illustrate to you an example of whirl pattern. So halimbawa whirl pattern yan, no? So here, no, ang type line natin dito are the two lines or two ridges that are running side by side with each other. Then they actually enclose yung tinatawag nating fingerprint pattern area. So asan yung fingerprint pattern area natin? So ito guys, no, kung nasaan yung tinatawag nating fingerprint pattern. Now, yung nagsusurround, no, yung kumbaga nag-enclose doon is we have this ridge and that ridge, no? So sila kumbaga yung enclosure, nag-enclose, no, nagkulong doon sa ating pattern area. So this, no, itong ridge na ito, itong bumabalot, no, pumapalibot sa ating pattern area is known as the type, no, type line. Okay? So that's for the type lines, no? Now, yan. So next illustration we have here yung tinatawag naman nating diverging ridge. Well, a diverging ridge, no, pwede rin siyang it's a type line, pero ang characteristic ng diverging ridge is that dito muna tayo para hindi ma-consume. So for example, there is, no, ridge here, no, tapos meron ding ridge na katabi niya, no, that they're running parallel with each other, no, magkasabay sila halos, then bigla silang maghihiwalay. So yan, that is, no, since naghiwalay sila, they went on to their separate ways, no, which originally magkasama silang magkasabay silang tumatakbo, then naghiwalay sila, that is a diverging ridge. Kabaliktaran siya guys ng kanina, no, which is yung example natin kanina, that's for the sorry, I misspelled the word ridge, no? So RD, yan. So kanina, the first illustration natin is, di ba, nag-converge sila, magkahiwalay, tapos biglang nagsalubong, that is converging. Ito naman magkasama, no, two ridges running parallel with each other, magkasama sila, then biglang naghiwalay, so that is diverging. Yung magkahiwalay, then biglang nagsama, that is converging ridge. Okay? Then we have also bifurcating ridge, no? So bifurcating ridge is one ridge, no, then biglang na-split into two. Okay? One ridge, then na-split into two. Anong pinagkaiba guys nito doon sa diverging ridge? Doon sa diverging ridge, two, no? Dalawa sila, dalawang ridge yan, running parallel with each other. Ibig sabihin, hindi sila magkasama, pero magkasabay sila. Dito naman guys, iisang ridge lang yan. Iisang ridge yung pinanggalingan nila, then bigla silang na-split into two. So this is so-called as bifurcation, no? Bifurcation. Okay? So meron din, halimbawa, we are going to illustrate trifurcation. Wala yan, no? Wala yan sa ating presentation, pero i-illustrate na rin natin. So for example, no, one ridge, then nag-split siya into 3 ridges. So this is, no, a trifurcation. Okay? So, importanteng alam natin itong mga to guys kasi when we are going to, for example, we're going to present this to the court, no? For example, you need to discuss kasi na hindi lang basta, I mean, you have your findings, you have your point of comparison, you need to discuss, okay? So, for example, here, no, what's the rule with regards to ridge counting for trifurcation? Depende yan, no? Halimbawa, tumamad yan, no, ang ating imaginary line, you count this as 3 intervening ridges, mga ganun. So, later on, no, anyway, mapag-aaralan naman natin itong mga to. Pero, kailangan muna nating i-familiarize kasi the illustration, no, on these different types of ridges, no? So, bifurcation, pag isang ridge, no, nag-split into 2, bifurcation, no? From the word bi, which means 2, no? For trifurcation, one ridge is split into 3, that is trifurcation, okay? Now, pattern area, no? Kanina guys, 'di ba? Let me bring back my first illustration. Yan. So kanina, we stated that this is the type line. Ano ang ginagawa ni type line? It surrounds the pattern area, no? Ngayon, where is the pattern area? So the pattern area is this, no? Dito. Ito kumbaga, no, kung ano yung kung saan makikita natin yung different fingerprint pattern, that's the pattern area. So if we are going to illustrate that, for example, ito. Now we are going to draw a type line muna. Draw tayo ng type line. So for example, that's the type line, no? Etong space na ito, no, this is the pattern area. Ayan, dyan natin siya makikita guys, no? Kung saan usually located yung mga fingerprint pattern. For example, we're going to talk about loop, no? So, nandyan yung pattern ng loop, no? So, itong space na to, that's the pattern area. Okay? Lastly, no, we're going to talk about core, no? So, core and delta is very important for ridge tracing and ridge counting, which later on mapag-uusapan natin. So, ano yung core, ano yung delta, no? So, for example, we're going to draw, no? This is, for example, a loop, no? Yan, loop sana yan. Okay? Ngayon, there are several rules that we need to be reminded of, no? With regards to the identification of core and identification of loop, no? Ngayon, the most inner ridge, no? Yan. From the word, the word core means the pinaka-center, kumbaga, no? So, the core here is the most inner ridge, no? This is the point, no? This is the point on the ridge formation that is usually located at the center or the heart of the pattern. So, saan ang pinaka-sentro guys ng ating pattern? So, etong ridge na ito, no? Etong ridge na ito. Yan. So, bilugan na lang natin. So, that is where the core is located, dun sa pinaka-sentro niya usually, no? The delta naman is the point, no, on the ridge formation at or directly in front or near the center of the divergence of the type line. So, again, yung type line natin guys, no, asan yung type line natin for this specific pattern? So, the type line is etong dalawang ito, no? This is the type line. Okay, kasi they enclose the pattern area or the fingerprint pattern. Ngayon, the rule for delta is that, no, pag sinabi nating delta, ito yung mga ridge formation that are located directly or in front or near, no, the pattern, near the center or opening of the type line. So, asan yun guys, no? So, basically, ito yung type line. Asan ba yung ridge yan? This is now the delta, no? That's the delta. So again, no? Ano ulit yung rule natin with regards to the core? Saan natin makikita si core? Sa innermost, no, part of the innermost or center of the pattern area, no? So tignan natin yung pinaka-sentro niya, no? But there are several rules, no, that are used in identifying the pattern, in identifying the core, no? Later on, mapag-aaralan natin yan, no? For delta naman, it is the ridge formation that is found near, no, or in front, no, or it at the center of the so-called type line, no? So ito yung type line, diyan natin hahanapin niya sa opening niya kung nasan yung ridge characteristics, no, or ridge formation that is found there. So next, we are going to try to illustrate to you the different fingerprint family pattern, no? So we have actually, meron tayong tatlo, di ba? We have arch, no? We have loops, no? We have whorls, no? Yeah. So these are the three family fingerprint patterns. So we have arch, no? Ang arch, guys, the characteristic of arch is that the ridges enter in one side and no enter on one side of the pattern, then flows towards the other side, no? So if this is, for example, no, a ridge, then nag-enter siya dito, nag-enter siya dyan, then it goes, or lumabas siya doon sa kabilang pattern area, no, kabilang part ng pattern area, then ang tawag natin dyan is arch. So basically, pag nakakita kayo, tignan nyo yung mga daliri nyo, guys, pag ganyan yung fingerprint pattern niya, no? Wala siyang recurve, ano? 'Di ba? Yung recurve na sinasabi natin kanina is bumabalik, no? Ang recurve kasi is ganyan, no? So, this, no, etong mga ito, walang recurve kasi pumasok siya diyan, no? Lumabas siya doon sa kabilang part ng pattern area. So, kapag ganito ang characteristic, guys, ng fingerprint pattern nyo, we call that as an arch, no? So again, ilang percent ulit ng mga tao ang merong ganitong fingerprint characteristic, di ba? We have only 5% of the entire population. So actually kokonti lang. Now for loop naman, guys, no? For loop. Okay? Sa loop naman, we have two of them, no? We have yung tinatawag nating radial loop, and we have ulnar loop, no? The characteristic of loop is that meron tayong tinatawag na recurving ridge, no? So ano again yung recurving ridge? It is some ridge characteristics where the ridge pattern enters on one side and recurve and goes back to which, no? And lumalabas siya to which it started. So dito siya nag-enter, no? Nag-recurve siya, bumalik siya kung saan siya banda pumasok, which is dito banda, no? So there is a recurving ridge. So if we're going to look at the different patterns, usually ganyan yung itsura niya, no? Something like bumabalik doon sa yung meron siyang mga recurving ridge. Yung mga ridge niya is nag-enter sa isang parte at bumalik din siya doon din siya nag-exit, no? Nag-enter siya dito, nag-exit siya dito din lang. Okay? So that's the characteristic of a loop, no? So marami tayong mga rules din on identifying, no, whether the pattern is a loop or a whorl, no? So this is a loop, no? Meron tayong recurve. Sabi nga natin, the point of identification for loop is meron tayong recurving ridge. For arch naman, guys, no, flowing lang siya. Kumbaga, it enters on one side then exit on the opposite side, no? For whorls naman, guys, the key for identifying whether the pattern is a whorl is that meron tayong tinatawag na pattern which, no, form a 360 or a spiral, no? So meron siyang turn or complete turn of a 360 degrees. So kapag merong paikot, no, doon sa fingerprint pattern na yan, no, then definitely that pattern could be considered as a whorl, no? So this is, no, for example, ganyan, no? Pasensya na tayo sa drawing. Okay, ano lang tayo. Okay? Practice. So, tignan natin, guys, the characteristic of the pattern. Meron ba tayong pattern which enters on one side and exit, no, on the opposite side? Meron ba? Wala. So, umiikot lang siya. Meron ba tayong recurving ridge, no? Isang pattern na kung saan it enters on one side and then it recurves and goes back, no, to where it enters. So yan sana, no, kasi pag may ganyan, then definitely that is considered or that will be considered as a loop, no? Wala rin tayo makita kasi puro paikot, no? So ibig sabihin kung puro paikot yan, no, if the pattern, no, forms a spiral, no, or forms a 360 turn, no, then that will be considered as a whorl, no? So that is a whorl. So the key, no, again, no, just a quick review. Kapag ang isang pattern, no, ay nag-enter sa isang side, no, and then nag-exit sa opposite side,
If that's the characteristic of the ridge, no, then that is an arch. No? Kapag merong recurving, ibig sabihin is yung isang ridge ay nag-enter sa isang side at nag-exit doon kung saan din siya nag-enter, no, then that is considered as a loop. No? If there's a ridge na kung saan nag-form siya ng complete turn, no, the 360 turn, umikot, spiral, then that will be considered as a whirl. Okay? So that's it for now, no? Yan muna ang ating tatalakayin sa ngayong lecture na ito, since we're just how do we call this? Familiarizing ourselves with regards to the different ridge characteristics, no? And the different ridge pattern, no? So the rest of the lecture will follow, no? Kapag natalakay na natin yung mga iba. Okay? So if you have questions, guys, with regards to the topic that we discussed, feel free to comment on the comment section. And that's it for now. I hope you were able to learn from the topic that we discussed today. Thank you for listening. See you guys on the next lecture. Bye-bye.